Welcome to Starbound. My name's Aram, and I'll be your narrator today. Nearly 500 supporters get early access to our stories, including brand new episodes of Sunspire Academy and Freyrin and Remike. If you'd like to unlock early access and support new episodes and future series, tap Join below to become a Starbound member. Now, let's get into today's story.
By the 7 moons of Zartha, what is wrong with these creatures?
Overseer Danak's eye twitched violently as they watched a human deliberately leap from a metal platform suspended hundreds of feet above churning water. The being's arms were spread wide, their mouth contorted in what appeared to be a scream, but the sound escaping was unmistakably that of joy.
Are they committing ritual suicide?
Enforcer Vash gripped the railing of their observation deck, his massive scaled hands denting the metal.
Should we intervene?
A thin cord snapped taut, yanking the human back from certain death. The elastic rebound sent them flying upward, and remarkably, impossibly, the human laughed.
They call it bungee jumping.
Investigator Zim consulted their datapad.
It's listed under recreational activities.
Danak's AI assistant pinged an alert.
Logic algorithms failing. Unable to compute rational explanation.
The inspection team had arrived on Earth mere hours ago, dispatched by the Cosmic Federation to determine whether humans were a threat, a potential ally, or an inconsequential anomaly. Given humanity's primitive technology and chaotic planet, most in the Federation assumed the latter. Most in the Federation were fools.
This is our 7th observation point today,
Danak said, their face refracting sunlight in patterns that indicated severe distress.
And yet I understand these beings less with each new data point.
Their disguises were perfect. Zim had assured them of that. The shapeshifter had studied human physiology extensively before their arrival and had crafted convincing human forms for the entire team. Danak appeared as a slender human with silver gray hair and blue eyes. Vash had been compressed into the form of a bulky human male with dark skin and an expression that discouraged conversation. Zim themselves shifted appearance regularly, currently presenting as a nondescript human with medium-length brown hair. The observation deck overlooked a popular tourist attraction, a bridge from which humans willingly hurled themselves toward death over and over, all day long.
The report mentioned Earth was a death world,
Vash muttered.
But I assumed that meant the environment was hostile, not that its inhabitants actively sought death for entertainment.
A commotion drew their attention to the street below. 2 wheeled metal vehicles had collided, creating a cacophony of screeching metal and breaking glass. Danak's threat assessment protocols activated automatically, calculating casualty projections and evacuation routes. But instead of mass panic, one of the humans emerged from their crumpled vehicle, inspected the damage, and slapped the roof in frustration.
Damn, that's annoying. Just got this thing detailed.
The other human climbed out, seemingly uninjured despite the impact.
Sorry, man. Insurance will cover it.
They exchanged small rectangular cards, took images of the damage with handheld devices, and parted ways, as if the violent collision were nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Danak's AI pinged again.
System reset required. Logical inconsistency threshold exceeded.
I need to understand this, Zim said suddenly.
I'm going to interact directly.
Before Danak could object, the shapeshifter had already morphed into a more distinctive human form and was heading toward the street level.
Zim, wait!
Danak called after them.
We need to maintain observation protocols.
Let them go,
Vash said, his disguised form's eyes tracking Zim's departure.
We need better intelligence. Our remote studies didn't prepare us for whatever this is.
Zim reached the street and immediately blended into the flow of humans. They adopted the purposeful stride they had observed, attempting to mimic the confidence with which humans navigated their chaotic environment. After several minutes of walking, they spotted a gathering place, a structure with large windows and humans clustered inside, consuming various substances. A bar, according to their briefing materials, perfect for anthropological study. Zim entered and approached the long counter where liquids were being dispensed. They sat on an available stool, noting a plate of thin, yellow organic matter on the counter beside them.
What'll you have?
Asked the human behind the counter.
I will have what is popular,
Zim replied carefully. The human, a bartender, Zim recalled, nodded and began preparing a drink. Meanwhile, another human approached, glaring at Zim.
Hey, those are my fries.
Zim glanced at the yellow organic matter.
I did not touch your fries.
But you were looking at them like you wanted to take them.
I was merely observing.
The human shoved Zim's shoulder.
Nobody looks at my food like that.
Zim's training hadn't prepared them for this scenario. Their species avoided physical confrontation through complex diplomatic protocols. But here, over something as trivial as looking at food, a human was initiating conflict. A third human appeared at Zim's side.
Whoa, dude, chill. They were just sitting there.
Mind your business,
the aggressor said.
You're making it everyone's business,
the newcomer replied, then turned to Zim.
This guy bothering you? I am unfamiliar with the proper response protocol,
Zim admitted. The newcomer grinned. If someone's being a jerk, you either walk away or stand your ground. Your call. The aggressor shoved again, harder.
I'm talking to you!
Something unexpected happened within Zim. A reaction, primitive but powerful. They stood, mimicking the stance they'd observed in human visual media.
Perhaps you should leave me alone,
Zim said, their voice steadier than they felt. The newcomer nodded approvingly. There you go. Now if he pushes again, you can either push back or... The aggressor swung a fist. Without conscious thought, Zim ducked, a movement their body executed with surprising ease. The human's momentum carried him forward, off balance.
Nice!
The newcomer exclaimed. Zim's arm moved almost of its own accord, delivering a clumsy but effective push that sent the aggressor stumbling backward into a table. The bar erupted, not in terror, but in excitement. Humans gathered around, some pulling out devices to record the confrontation, others cheering. The aggressor recovered and charged. Zim sidestepped, their body responding to the threat with increasing confidence. When the human turned to attack again, Zim struck first, an uncoordinated but effective blow to the human's midsection. The aggressor doubled over, and the crowd roared in approval.
That's how it's done!
The newcomer clapped Zim on the back.
You're a natural!
The aggressor was escorted out by larger humans wearing matching attire. The newcomer handed Zim a cold container of liquid. First round's on me. You earned it. Zim accepted the container, bewildered by the entire encounter.
Thank you for your assistance.
No problem. Some people just need to learn the hard way, you know? As the newcomer drifted away, Zim remained at the counter, processing what had just occurred. Zim had engaged in physical conflict, something their species considered barbaric, and had not only survived, but apparently succeeded according to human standards. More disturbingly, they had enjoyed it. The rush of chemicals through their borrowed human form had created sensations that were not entirely unpleasant. Zim drank from the container and immediately regretted it as the liquid burned down their throat. Yet, strangely, they found themselves taking another sip. Meanwhile, back at the observation deck, Vash was experiencing his own crisis of understanding. The warrior, who had personally led campaigns that crushed entire civilizations, was watching a documentary on a portable viewing device. Ultramarathons, the narrator explained, push human endurance to its limits. Runners often experience extreme dehydration, hallucinations, and tissue damage, including bleeding from their feet as their toenails fall off, yet they continue for up to 100 miles or more. The screen showed close-up footage of damaged human feet, blood seeping through thin footwear, followed by the exhausted but triumphant faces of the runners as they crossed finish lines.
For entertainment,
Vash whispered, his voice hollow. Danak was faring no better. The hyperlogical observer had attempted to create a predictive model of human behavior based on their observations, but each new data point contradicted the previous patterns. Humans risked death for amusement. They ignored pain. They initiated conflict over trivial matters, then formed social bonds immediately afterward. They operated dangerous machinery at high speeds with minimal protection. Their young engaged in activities that regularly resulted in injury, only to resume those same activities moments later. Danak's AI assistant had crashed 12 times in the past hour.
Vash, Danak said quietly, I believe we may have grossly underestimated the situation.
Vash nodded, his eyes not leaving the screen where a human was now describing how they had completed a marathon despite having broken bones in their foot.
The Federation needs to know, he agreed. These aren't primitives struggling to survive. They're something else entirely.
Zim returned as the sun was setting, their gait unsteady, a small cut on their cheek. "What happened to you?" Danak demanded. "I participated in a ritual called a bar fight," Zim reported, an unfamiliar expression on their face. "It was educational."
You were injured, Vash observed.
"Minimally. The humans sustained similar injuries and seemed to regard them as inconsequential."
Zim touched the cut.
"One human had a tooth knocked out. He kept it as a souvenir and continued drinking."
Danak's primary eye twitched again. "We need to report to the Federation immediately."
"Wait,"
Zim said.
"I've learned something important. There's a diplomatic event tomorrow night, a formal presentation by Earth's first ambassador to the stars. Ambassador Cole will be making the case for Earth's entry into the Cosmic Federation."
"Perfect," Danak decided. "We'll attend and observe this ambassador. Perhaps a diplomatic representative will provide more comprehensible data." As night fell over the city, the inspection team retreated to their hidden ship to prepare for the day's following mission. None of them slept well, their dreams haunted by images of humans laughing in the face of certain death. The United Nations Interstellar Embassy gleamed under the evening sky, its architecture a fusion of Earth tradition and concessions to extraterrestrial accessibility. The inspection team arrived disguised as minor diplomatic functionaries, their credentials fabricated but flawless. "Remember," Danak murmured as they approached the security checkpoint, "we are here to observe only." Vash grunted agreement, though his disguised form's face betrayed discomfort. The warrior had spent the day reviewing more human entertainment and had grown increasingly disturbed by the footage of something called extreme skateboarding. Now, as they entered the grand reception hall, Vash's gaze darted nervously from human to human, as though expecting them all to suddenly perform death-defying stunts. The hall buzzed with conversation. representatives from 12 spacefaring species mingled with Earth's diplomatic corps, creating a tapestry of forms, colors, and translucent universal translation fields. An air of curiosity filled the room as the different species co-mingled. Everyone was fascinated by human customs and culture, just as humans, being new to galactic travel, let alone direct alien contact, were fascinated by alien customs and culture. Across the room, Danak noticed the shift in atmosphere. Their AI assistant, still glitchy from yesterday's logical inconsistencies, pinged a warning.
Attendee vital signs indicating collective anticipation.
Danak moved closer to the central platform as the room's lighting subtly changed, directing attention forward. A tall, broad-shouldered figure strode confidently toward the podium, moving with an ease that belied the gravitational differences that caused most non-humans to struggle on Earth. Ambassador Alex Cole carried no visible notes, wore no ceremonial regalia beyond a simple dark suit, and projected none of the nervous energy Danak had observed in other diplomatic representatives. Instead, the human radiated a calm confidence that bordered on indifference. Vash, positioned near the platform, felt an instinctive urge to step backward. In his natural form, he stood 9 feet tall and possessed strength capable of bending metal. He had faced down apex predators on 12 worlds, yet something about this human's demeanor triggered ancient warning systems in his warrior brain. The ambassador reached the podium and surveyed the room, eyes lingering briefly on various delegates before offering a smile that didn't quite reach their eyes.
Distinguished representatives, honored guests, fellow humans, Cole began, voice clear and unhurried. I'll keep this brief because I know there's an open bar waiting, and if there's one thing humans and aliens seem to universally agree on, it's that speeches shouldn't come between thirsty diplomats and free drinks. A ripple of laughter moved through the room, genuine from the humans, uncertain from the aliens. Earth stands at a crossroads. We've spent our history looking up at the stars, wondering if we were alone. Now we know we're not, and we're asking to join the larger community. Cole paused, taking a sip from a glass of water. You've all received the formal briefing materials on Earth: atmospheric composition, technological development, resource allocations, the usual dry statistics, but those don't tell you who we are. The ambassador's posture shifted subtly, and Danak's AI pinged again.
Micro-expressions indicating pride and challenge.
So, let me tell you about humanity. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us at every turn. Predators 3 times our size. Weather that swings from searing heat to freezing cold. Earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes. Our planet regularly tries to wipe us off its surface. Cole's eyes swept the room again, lingering momentarily on Vasha's disguised form. We survived multiple extinction-level events, global ice ages, and apocalyptic wars, and that was before we invented electricity. Danak noticed several alien representatives shifting uncomfortably. A Moravian diplomat's breathing apparatus wheezed in distress. When early humans needed to hunt prey faster than us, did we give up? No. We chased them until they collapsed from exhaustion. When we needed to survive in frozen environments, we didn't evolve thick fur. We skinned animals that had it and wore it ourselves. The room had grown uncomfortably quiet. Cole continued, seemingly oblivious to the effect his words were having. We split the atom less than a century after inventing the automobile. We went from our first powered flight to landing on our moon in 60 years. Our progress isn't linear, it's exponential.
A Thalaxian representative raised a trembling appendage.
Ambassador, if I may, your species' history indicates multiple near extinctions through warfare. How did your civilization recover from such devastation?
Cole waved dismissively. We got through it. It's fine. Humans are remarkably adaptable. The inspection team exchanged glances across the room. Danak's AI was emitting a continuous error tone. Another delegate spoke up, a high-ranking member of the Federation of Sentient Species.
Your people know your homeworld is a death trap, yet you refuse to establish colonies elsewhere?
Cole chuckled. We kind of like it here. Great beaches. Besides, the challenge keeps us sharp. The Q&A continued, each exchange more surreal than the last.
Your species intentionally consumes neurotoxins for pleasure?
Asked a horrified Axelian scientist. You mean alcohol and caffeine? Sure. Makes Monday mornings possible. Cole replied with a shrug.
Is it true humans deliberately expose themselves to harmful radiation to alter their skin pigmentation?
Inquired a baffled Vexorian. Tanning? Yeah, not my thing personally, but people like how it looks, Cole says.
Our analysis indicates your species engages in recreational activities with mortality rates exceeding 20%.
Extreme sports. That's just the adrenaline junkies. Great reality TV, though. Cole laughs. As the session concluded, the inspection team regrouped in a quiet corner of the reception hall. Vash was sweating profusely within his human disguise. Zim looked pale. Danak's disguised form had developed a nervous tic in one eye.
Did you hear what they said about their wars?
Vash whispered.
They fought conflicts so devastating they reshaped their planet's geography.
Danak's AI had shut down completely. The Overseer reset it manually as they spoke. Their ambassador isn't displaying diplomatic caution. There's no attempt to downplay their capacity for violence or resilience.
Because they don't see it as unusual,
Zim realized.
To them, this is normal.
A horrified silence fell across their huddle. Enjoying the reception? Ambassador Cole appeared before the inspection team, a drink in hand, expression mildly curious. I don't believe we've met. The inspection team froze. Their disguises were perfect, their credentials impeccable, but they hadn't prepared for direct engagement with humanity's representative. We're observers, Danak managed. Recently assigned to the Earth Diplomatic Initiative. Cole studied them with eyes that seemed to see more than they should. Interesting. You three have been watching me all evening with expressions I usually only see on people who've just discovered what happens when you microwave metal. Before they could respond, Cole continued. Tell you what, if you're really interested in understanding humans, meet me tomorrow morning. I'll show you the real New York, not this sanitized, diplomatic version. The ambassador handed Danak a small card with an address. 9 a.m. Wear comfortable shoes. Cole winked. Oh, and don't worry about your disguises. They're good, but we've been dealing with shapeshifters since our first science fiction magazines. See you tomorrow. As Cole walked away, the inspection team stood in stunned silence.
He knew,
Vash whispered.
How could he possibly know we're wearing disguises?
Zim frowns with confusion.
He should have been alarmed, defensive. Instead, he invited us to sightsee?
Danak stared at the card in their hand. I believe we've severely miscalculated. The Federation sent us to determine if humans are a threat. I'm beginning to think that's the wrong question entirely.
What's the right question?
Vash asked. Danak's eyes followed Ambassador Cole across the room, watching as the human casually lifted a tray that a server had dropped, right at a toppled ice sculpture with one hand, and continued conversing as if nothing had happened. I suppose we'll find out tomorrow. Danak felt a spike of anxiety shoot through their body. The next morning, despite serious misgivings, the inspection team arrived at the designated address. It was a small cafe in a bustling neighborhood, and Ambassador Cole was already waiting, dressed casually in what appeared to be outdoor gear. Right on time, Cole greeted them. I appreciate punctuality. Coffee before we start? It's one of humanity's better inventions.
How did you know what we are?
Vash demanded. Cole smiled. Your disguises are perfect. Your behavior isn't. You flinch when humans do normal human things, like slap each other on the back or talk about weekend activities. Also, our security systems detected your ship despite its cloaking technology.
That's impossible,
Zim protested.
Our stealth systems are
good, but not good enough. Look, I could report you to the Federation for unauthorized surveillance, but I highly suspect they're the ones who sent you to assess humanity. So let's skip the diplomatic incident, and I can show you what you came to see. Cole gestured to a waiting vehicle. Very well, Danak decided. Show us. Cole grinned, an expression that sent an involuntary shiver through Vash's disguised form. Excellent. First stop, New York City, on a normal Tuesday morning. Brace yourselves. It only gets weirder from here. Ambassador Cole drove with a casual disregard for death that perfectly exemplified everything the inspection team had observed about humans. The vehicle, a vintage Mustang, according to Cole, accelerated through gaps in traffic that Danak's threat assessment protocols classified as mathematically impossible to survive. So, Cole said, deftly weaving between two larger vehicles with inches to spare. What aspects of humanity interest you most? Our history, technology, social structures?
Your apparent immunity to self-preservation instincts,
Vash muttered, his disguised knuckles white as he gripped the door handle. Cole laughed. Oh, we have those. We just override them when there's something more important.
like what?
Zim asked from the back seat, where they were experiencing uncomfortable sensations in their mimicked digestive system. Fun, convenience, a good story to tell later. Cole accelerated through a yellow light just as it turned red. You'd be surprised what humans will risk for trivial reasons. Their first stop was a city park, where Cole had arranged to meet friends. As they walked along a path, a blur of activity caught their attention. A human, skateboarding, hurtling down a concrete incline. That's Jamie, Cole explained. Professional skateboarder. They watched as Jamie launched off the edge of the concrete, spinning the board beneath them while rotating their body in the air. The landing was imperfect. The human crashed to the ground, sliding several feet on their side. Vash made a strangled sound of distress. But Jamie simply stood up, examining a bloody scrape on their arm, and climbed back up to try again. Aren't you going to help them? Danak asked, bewildered. Help them what? They're fine, Cole replied. They've had way worse. Last year, they broke both ankles at the X Games and still took silver.
Both locomotion appendages were damaged, yet they continued competing?
Zim's voice rose an octave. Well, they finished their run first, then went to the hospital.
Cole waved as Jamie noticed them. Hey, that was looking good! Jamie jogged over, board in hand, blood still trickling down their arm.
Thanks! 2 more tries and I'll nail it!
Cole introduced the inspection team as diplomatic observers interested in human recreation. Jamie shook their hands enthusiastically, leaving smears of blood in Zim's palm.
You should stick around for the real show, Jamie told them. I'm testing a new ramp setup this afternoon, trying to break the vertical air record.
Why? Vash asked, genuinely puzzled. Jamie blinked, as if the question made no sense.
Because no one's done it before?
After parting from Jamie, Cole led them to another section of the park where humans were engaged in various activities. Children climbed on metal structures and hurled themselves down slippery inclines. Adults lifted heavy objects repeatedly, for no apparent reason other than to put them down again. Zim observed a small human child fall face first onto the ground. The tiny being stood up, face covered in dirt, and immediately ran back to the same activity.
The young one is injured,
Zim pointed out. Cole shrugged. Nah, just a tumble. Kids bounce. Bounce? Danak's AI pinged a warning.
Literal interpretation impossible.
Cole scratched his head. Figure of speech. They're resilient. I once saw my nephew fall out of a tree, break his arm, and try to climb back up before we could get him to the hospital. Cole shook his head fondly. Kids, right? The inspection team did not, in fact, know if this was right. They were beginning to suspect it was very, very wrong by galactic standards. Their next destination was a hospital. Cole had arranged access through diplomatic channels, explaining that the aliens were interested in human medical practices. The antiseptic environment initially reassured the inspection team. Here, surely, humans would demonstrate appropriate caution regarding physical harm. This hope was quickly dashed. They observed a human with a clearly broken limb arguing with medical personnel. It's just a fracture, the patient insisted. I've got a meeting in an hour.
Sir, your bone is visible,
the doctor replied with remarkable patience. Can't you just wrap it up? I'll come back this evening. In another room, a human who had recently undergone surgery was attempting to disconnect themselves from monitoring equipment.
I'm bored,
the patient explained when caught.
And they don't have good Wi-Fi here.
Vash, who had personally witnessed the fall of civilizations, looked faint. Your medical technology seems primitive, Danak observed carefully. Yet your species survives traumatic injuries with surprising frequency. Cole nodded. We make up for technological limitations with biological tenacity. Human bodies are remarkably good at not dying. This explains much, Danak murmured. Their AI had given up attempting to process logical inconsistencies and was now simply recording observations without analysis. After the hospital, Cole drove them to a wildlife sanctuary on the outskirts of the city. Here, the ambassador explained, they could observe how humans interacted with Earth's indigenous life forms. Many of our animals are dangerous, Cole warned as they entered. But they're behind appropriate barriers, so we're perfectly safe. The inspection team's confidence in this statement wavered when they turned a corner to find a human handler with an enormous spotted feline, separated from visitors by nothing more than a waist-high barrier. That's Raja, Cole explained. Bengal tiger, about 500 pounds of apex predator. Lisa there has been working with him since he was a cub. As they watched, the handler fed the tiger chunks of meat from her hand, then leaned in to press her face against the creature's cheek in what appeared to be an affectionate gesture.
They're touching it with their face,
Vash whispered, horrified.
Its mouth is larger than their head.
It's called giving kisses, Cole explained. Raja loves Susan. Look, he's purring.
The rumbling sound emanating from the massive predator did nothing to reassure the inspection team.
On my world,
Zim said faintly,
we exterminated whole large predators 10,000 years ago.
Cole frowned.
That's sad. Earth wouldn't be Earth without its wildlife.
Even the ones that can kill you? Danak asked.
Especially those.
Cole brightened.
Here, watch this.
The ambassador approached the handler, who recognized him with a smile. After a brief conversation, the handler motioned Cole closer to the barrier.
Ambassador Cole is a sanctuary supporter,
the handler explained to the wide-eyed inspection team.
Raja, say hello to Alex.
To their collective horror, Cole extended a hand toward the massive predator. The tiger sniffed it, then rubbed its enormous head against Cole's fingers.
Good boy,
Cole said softly, scratching behind the creature's ear.
See, he's just a big kitty.
The big kitty opened its mouth in what appeared to be a yawn, displaying teeth longer than Zim's fingers.
You domesticated these?
Danak asked weakly.
Not exactly. They're still wild animals. We've just learned to communicate with them on their terms.
Cole stepped back from the barrier.
Humans domesticated wolves, though. We turned one of nature's most efficient pack hunters into creatures that wear sweaters and sleep on our beds.
Why would you do this?
Vash asked. Cole seemed genuinely surprised by the question.
Because they're good companions, loyal, protective, even helpful.
But they were dangerous, Danak pressed.
Everything interesting is a little dangerous, Cole replied with a shrug. That's part of the appeal.
As they drove back toward the city, the inspection team was uncharacteristically silent, processing what they'd witnessed. Humans didn't just survive on a death world. They embraced its dangers, incorporated them into their lives, and even found them appealing.
I'd like to show you one more thing,
Cole said, taking an exit toward what appeared to be a commercial district.
A little insight into how humans approach challenges.
They parked outside a nondescript building with a sign reading, Empire City Rock Climbing Gym. Inside, humans of various ages were scaling artificial walls studded with small handholds, some rising 30 feet or more from padded floors.
Rock climbing is a popular recreational activity,
Cole explained, leading them toward a particularly challenging-looking wall.
It builds strength, problem-solving skills, and mental resilience.
They watched as a climber lost their grip near the top of the wall and fell, the safety rope catching them after a heart-stopping moment of free fall. The human dangled momentarily, laughing, then swung back to the wall to try again.
You find failure amusing?
Zim asked.
Sometimes. Mostly we find it informative. Each failed attempt teaches you something.
Cole gestured toward the climber, who was now trying a different approach to the same section.
See? They're adapting their strategy.
In our culture,
Vash said slowly,
failure of such magnitude would be cause for deep shame.
That sounds exhausting,
Cole replied.
Humans fail constantly. We'd never get anything done if we stopped to feel ashamed every time.
The inspection team departed the climbing gym in a state of profound unease. Every new piece of information about humanity only deepened their concern. These beings didn't just survive potentially lethal situations, they actively sought them out, learned from them, and emerged stronger. As they drove back toward the city center, a commotion caught their attention. Smoke billowed from a building several blocks away, and emergency vehicles raced past them, sirens blaring. Cole immediately changed course, following the emergency response.
Let's see what's happening.
They parked several streets away from the incident, a multi-story residential building with flames visible from several windows. Humans in protective gear rushed into the building while others coordinated evacuation efforts outside.
Shouldn't we leave?
Vash suggested, eyeing the dangerous scene.
The structural integrity appears compromised.
We're at a safe distance,
Cole assured them.
but watch the firefighters.
The inspection team observed as humans wearing protective gear entered the burning building repeatedly, emerging with residents and returning for more.
They're going back in,
Danak noted, surprised.
the probability of structural collapse increases with each passing minute. They know,
Cole said quietly.
but there might still be people inside.
They're risking death for strangers,
Zim realized. Cole watched the scene with a mixture of concern and pride.
When things go wrong,
We run toward the problem, not away from it. As if on cue, a section of the building's facade collapsed. A firefighter emerged from the dust cloud, carrying an elderly human in his arms.
is that behavior common?
Danak asked, their voice carefully neutral.
Common enough. Most humans would help others in danger if they could.
Cole glanced at the inspection team.
Wouldn't your species do the same?
None of them answered immediately. Among their respective civilizations, such self-sacrifice was honored in theory, but rarely expected in practice. Sophisticated risk assessment protocols typically prevented individuals from endangering themselves for others except in the most controlled circumstances. Humans, it seemed, operated on different calculations entirely. The final straw came as they were returning to the diplomatic compound. At a street crossing, a small dog darted into traffic. Without hesitation, a human jumped into the road, scooped up the animal, and narrowly avoided being struck by an oncoming vehicle.
Did that human just risk death for a non-sapient companion species?
Danak asked, their voice strained.
Looks like it,
Cole replied casually.
people love their pets.
Zim, who had been quiet for some time, finally spoke.
We need to tell the Federation immediately.
Cole raised an eyebrow.
Tell them what, exactly?
Everything.
Zim's disguised form had gone pale.
Humans aren't just surviving on a death world, they're thriving on it. They've adapted to see danger as an opportunity, pain as temporary, death as merely inconvenient.
Vash nodded solemnly.
In all my campaigns, I have never encountered a species with such disregard for their own mortality, yet such fierce attachment to life.
Cole seemed amused.
You make us sound like monsters.
Not monsters, Danak corrected.
Something far more concerning. A species that evolved in constant danger, developed intelligence to overcome it, and now seeks out new dangers when old ones are conquered. That's just human nature,
Cole replied with a shrug.
Precisely,
Vash replied grimly.
and that is what terrifies us.
The Grand Assembly Chamber of the Cosmic Federation had never been convened on such short notice. Representatives from 327 spacefaring civilizations filled the vast circular space, their confusion evident in the cacophony of translated murmurs that filled the chamber. At the center of it all stood the inspection team, Overseer Danak, Investigator Zim, and Enforcer Vash, their disguises abandoned.
What we have discovered on Earth requires immediate attention,
Danak began.
Earth?
A Thalaxian delegate waved a dismissive tendril.
The primitive world with the bipedal mammals? They barely have interplanetary travel.
Vash stepped forward, his massive scaled form towering over the central podium.
That primitive world harbors the most dangerous species we have encountered.
The chamber erupted in skeptical murmurs. A holographic display activated above the central platform, showing Ambassador Cole's official portrait.
This is Ambassador Alex Cole,
Zim explained.
a diplomatic representative from Earth and an embodiment of humanity's most concerning traits.
He looks harmless enough, someone commented from the upper tiers.
Appearances are deceptive, Danak replied. Allow us to present our findings.
The holographic display shifted to show footage the inspection team had gathered during their mission. Humans jumping from platforms with elastic cords attached to their ankles. Humans climbing vertical rock faces with minimal safety equipment. Humans deliberately exposing themselves to extreme temperatures in recreational saunas and ice baths. As the presentation continued, the skeptical murmurs faded into uncomfortable silence.
Humans feel pain, but ignore it,
Danak explained, as footage showed a marathon runner with bleeding feet continuing their race.
They experience fear, but interpret it as excitement.
The display showed a human touching the nose of a massive gray aquatic animal with enormous teeth. The human was smiling.
They form emotional bonds with apex predators,
Zim added.
species that could kill them with minimal effort.
Footage of a child falling from a playground structure, crying briefly, then returning to play.
Their young begin conditioning against self-preservation instincts immediately after birth,
Vash noted grimly.
By adulthood, they have normalized behaviors that would be considered pathological in any other species.
A Zelian scientist rose from their seat, upper limbs trembling.
Surely these are isolated examples, cultural outliers.
No, Danak said firmly.
These are average humans, engaging in what they consider ordinary activities.
The holographic display shifted to Ambassador Cole's formal address, playing the moment when they casually dismissed humanity's multiple near extinctions with,
We got through it. It's fine.
The Federation Security Council representative leaned forward.
What exactly are you suggesting, Overseer? That humans pose an imminent threat?
Danak hesitated, their surface rippling with complex thoughts.
Not precisely. Humans are not inherently aggressive toward other species. They appear genuinely interested in peaceful relations.
Then why this emergency session?
Demanded a Concordat elder.
Because,
Vash interjected.
they are unlike anything our civilizations have encountered. They evolved on a world that constantly tried to kill them, and instead of leaving when they developed the technology to do so, they adapted to thrive there.
Zim activated another recording, footage of firefighters entering a burning building.
They routinely risk death to save others, even strangers,
The shapeshifter explained.
Their capacity for both self-sacrifice and survival defies our predictive models.
The Grand Arbiter's breathing apparatus wheezed loudly.
Are you suggesting we deny their application to join the Federation based on their resilience?
No, Danak replied carefully.
I'm suggesting that we must reconsider our approach to humanity entirely. They are not simply another applicant species. They represent something unprecedented.
A senior diplomat from the Exulian Cooperative rose.
Unprecedented in what way? They have limited technological capabilities, minimal interstellar presence, and no significant military power by galactic standards.
Their technology is not what concerns us,
Vash rumbled.
It is their fundamental nature.
The holographic display showed a human after a vehicle collision, inspecting the damage with mild annoyance rather than distress or pain.
They see death as a minor inconvenience,
Danak continued.
Pain is temporary. fear is an attraction rather than a deterrent.
And how exactly does this translate to a galactic threat?
The Axulian pressed. Zim stepped forward.
Consider what will happen if humans encountered a hostile species. Would they retreat from superior technology or numbers? All evidence suggests they would not. They would adapt, improvise, continue fighting long after any rational species would surrender.
And if they won,
Vash added quietly,
they would likely invite their former enemies to a celebration, give them a recreational beverage, and suggest they do it again sometime.
The assembly chamber had grown deathly quiet.
There's more,
Danak said.
During our observations, we heard of a cultural phenomenon they call Florida Man.
The holographic display showed new headlines. Florida Man fights alligator to rescue pet dog. Florida Man survives lightning strike, wins lottery, bitten by shark, all in same day.
Florida Man arrested for attempting to ride Category 5 hurricane. We are uncertain if Florida Man represents a government experiment or some sort of deity,
Danak admitted.
But it exemplifies humanity's inexplicable relationship with danger.
The Grand Arbiter conferred briefly with the Security Council.
Your report is disturbing, Overseer. However, I fail to see what action you expect the Federation to take. We must decide,
Danak said firmly,
whether humanity should be admitted to our galactic community, and, if so, under what conditions. Their unpredictability makes them either our most valuable allies or our most destabilizing influence.
The chamber erupted in debate. Some delegates argued for outright rejection of Earth's application. Others suggested probationary status with strict monitoring. A few voiced support for immediate acceptance, arguing that humanity's unique traits could be beneficial against known threats. As the debate intensified, a movement at the chamber's entrance caught Vash's attention. Ambassador Cole stood in the doorway, calmly observing the proceedings with an expression of mild amusement.
Silence!
Vash roared, his voice cutting through the clamor. He pointed toward the entrance.
The human representative is present.
Every head in the chamber turned. Ambassador Cole gave a small wave and strolled toward the central platform, as if attending a casual social gathering rather than a galactic emergency session concerning their species.
Sorry to interrupt, Cole said, voice carrying effortlessly across the now silent chamber. But since you're all discussing humanity, I thought I should be here to answer questions.
The Grand Arbiter's breathing apparatus sputtered.
Ambassador Cole, this is a closed session of the Federation Council. So I gathered. Nice presentation, by the way.
Cole nodded toward the inspection team.
Though I think you overstate the Florida Man situation. That's mostly just a combination of sunshine laws and recreational chemicals.
Since I'm here, Cole continued, addressing the assembly,
let me save you some time. Yes, humans are weird by your standards. We climb mountains because they're there. We jump out of perfectly good aircrafts for fun. We keep animals that could eat us as pets. And yes, some of us try to ride hurricanes, though I don't personally recommend it. But here's what your inspection team might have missed. We're also the species that invented ice cream and wrote poetry about stars we couldn't reach. We devoted more time to curing childhood diseases than to weapons development. We protect endangered species that offer us no practical benefit.
Cole paused, meeting the gaze of various delegates.
Humans aren't just danger-seeking adrenaline junkies. We're explorers, creators, and caregivers. We run into burning buildings to save strangers because we value life. All life, not just our own. We climb mountains and dive oceans because we're curious about every corner of our world.
A Vexoran delegate rose. But your disregard for your own safety
is actually profound respect for life,
Cole interrupted.
We know our time is limited, so we make the most of it. We face dangers because overcoming them makes us feel alive.
The ambassador turned to the inspection team.
You saw humans laughing after accidents, continuing despite injuries, and assumed we don't value our lives. The opposite is true. We value our lives so much that we refuse to waste them on fear.
The chamber was silent as Cole's words sank in. Then, from the upper tier, a single delegate began to applaud. A Jothian, whose species had been part of the Federation since its founding. Others joined, the sound swelling until it filled the vast space.
Ambassador Cole speaks truth, the Jothian announced. My species once feared humans when we first encountered their exploration vessels. We observed similar traits to those described today, but in 3 centuries of contact, humans have never once initiated conflict with us. Instead, they have traded stories, shared resources, and offered assistance when disaster struck our colonies.
Other delegates rose to share similar experiences. Humanity's response to a Thalaxian plague, their assistance during the Merovian climate crisis, their diplomatic intervention in the Exulian succession dispute.
I move, the Jothian delegate declared, that we immediately approve Earth's application for Federation membership.
Seconded, came a chorus of voices. The vote, when called, was overwhelmingly in favor of Earth's admission. As delegates swarmed around Ambassador Cole to offer congratulations, the inspection team stood to the side, still processing what had occurred.
Did he just charm the entire Federation into ignoring all our warnings?
Vash whispered.
I believe, Danak replied slowly, that the ambassador just demonstrated precisely what makes humans so formidable. They identified our concerns, acknowledged them, then reframed them so masterfully that the Council not only dismissed the threat, but embraced it.
Zim watched as Cole easily navigated the crowd of alien diplomats, remembering each delegate's name, laughing at the right moments, projecting both humility and confidence simultaneously.
Perhaps the most terrifying thing about humans,
Zim said,
is that they think they're normal.
The Nox AI assistant, finally operational again, pinged a notification.
Assessment updated. Humans classified as extremely dangerous, highly unpredictable, and absolutely essential allies.